Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's edition of the Seekonk Speedway Race Day Rewind. So happy you could join us, whether you're watching it during its premiere at 4 o'clock or you're watching it after that. I want to thank you for listening to the Race Day Rewind, and we've got a lot to talk about this week. Not only some racing on Friday night, but also some practice on Saturday. For our Saturday night divisions. We'll get to that as the final segment of the show, as the Friday nights are still in the competition and want to start with that. This past Friday night, the 3rd of 2020, and those listening that are race fans know that, unfortunately, it's still a non-spectator event. The state of Massachusetts not budging on their spectator guidelines, not allowing us to have spectators. So, unfortunately, it's a no-spectator event. We had a good count of teams in the pit area, regular Fast Friday count, and it's been great to see everybody the last couple of weeks. Week 3, a little bit different than the first 2 weeks as far as the feature winners go. We had at least 2 drivers add their name to the list, and then a couple guys did repeat from the first 2 weeks. So let's start. Maybe the layout of this week's edition of the Race Day Rewind. We're going to start with our Bandolero divisions, both of them. We're going to welcome in Reese Bogue as a guest. Then we'll go to our Sport 4s, our Pure Stocks, and then our Legends, where we will welcome in the Legends winner as our guest, and then we'll talk about the Saturday nights. To end the show, we'll look ahead to what's coming up this week. I want to start with the Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Bandits this past Friday night, July the 31st. And, of course, as always, want to thank all our sponsors, Wayne Darling and Seekonk Grand Prix, sponsoring this upcoming division. And our Bandolero program is really strong, as it has been since it began. This week, it was Darren Krantz Jr., a New York native, picking up his first career win in the Bandolero Bandits. He started third, but it didn't take him long, man, to get to the front, passing Adam Harrison on lap 2 and leading all the way to the checkered flag. He's been strong in the first couple of weeks, just couldn't quite seal the deal for Krantz. And this time, he finally is able to park it in victory lane in his third career Seekonk start. Krantz has got Devin Deshays' team, John Deshays and the gang, setting up and working on that car. And Deshays won so many Bandolero races last year that I think I lost count of how many they were. So there's a reason why that car's going so well. Krantz has done a nice job getting acclimated to Seekonk, and picks up his first career win in his third start. So congratulations to him. It's been a good year in the Bandolero Bandits so far. I mean, you've got a couple of different winners now on the list in the first 3 weeks. The week before, in the Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Bandits, we had Ryan Van Ness Jr., the Bottle Rocket, pick up his first career win, which was a great showing there. And then back to week 1. I'm trying to think who won week 1. It feels like so long ago. Since we competed on Fast Friday Action way back on July the 17th. And it was Brody Monahan who picked up the win that night. Brody's had a couple tough nights since, a couple wrecks, including this past Friday night. But Monahan in week 1, Ryan Van Ness Jr. in week 2, and Darren Krantz Jr. Picking up the win in week 3. Behind him, Ryan Van Ness Jr., another strong run, a second. Thought he was going to have a shot to win it. Was right up on the bumper in the final couple of laps. Just couldn't seem to quite get the run he needed. He settles for second, and a fantastic run for Rich Helger Jr., his first career podium in this division. I believe he was telling me that was his 6th or 7th race total dating back to last year. So a great run by him. Richie Helger Jr. was up front at the beginning. He spun. And it might have been from the lead. It was either first or second when he spun from the lead by himself, and he comes back from the back of the field to pick up a solid third-place finish. So, again, congrats to Darren Krantz. Good run by Bottle Rocket, Ryan Van Ness Jr., and as well as Richie Helger Jr. Let's move on. Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Outlaw Division, their third race of the season as well. In their first 2 weeks, we had some great racing there. Week 3, no different. Just the difference in week 3 was a massive carnage in the front straightaway. I'd say just about at the halfway point that really took out a good chunk of cars, unfortunately, and is going to put a couple of them in a position where they need to get their cars fixed if they want to be back at the track next Friday night. Week 1, it was Reese Bogue. Week 2, it was Isaiah Newcomb in victory lane. And in week 3, Reese Bogue gets the job done again. Bogue moving up from the Bandits this year to the Outlaws, the defending Bandit champion, improving that he's not going to be any slouch there, picking up 2 out of the first 3 wins. But he really didn't have what I would call the dominant car early in the race. That's Brendan LaBelle. LaBelle jumps out from the pole and leads a good chunk of the first half of the race and looked to be the dominant car. It looked like, barring a miracle, he was going to be the guy that was going to celebrate in Everett's Auto Parts victory lane. And that miracle, unfortunately for LaBelle, comes at lap number 8, right at the halfway point, and unfortunately it was self-inflicted. He spun out coming off turn 4 in the lead by himself, and it collected a good chunk of cars. Gio Ruggiero, Steve Bowden, Sam Dell. I mentioned Isaiah Newcomb had won the week before. He's collected. Nick Rose is collected. There was at least 5 or 6 cars that were collected, and unfortunately 3 or 4 of them had to get the hook from Mark Labby and preferred towing off the track. So tough one there in the Bandolero Outlaws as far as the wreck goes. It happens once in a while. These cars are hard to control. But when LaBelle spins from the lead, that opens the door for Bogue, who had been running second. He takes over the lead officially at the green flag at lap number 9. And he leads the rest of the distance in that Tipping Rock Pet Lodge number 4. Congratulations to Bogue, 2 for 3 on the season. A strong run again for him, winning by just about half a second over Nick Chaber, who's now, I believe, got 3 second-place finishes to start the season. He has been really, really strong as well. Not quite fast enough to go to victory lane just yet. He's had enough speed to run up there in the top 3. But based on what I've seen, he is going to be there before long. He's going to be visiting Everett's Auto Parts victory lane in that number 00. So Chaber with 3 second-place finishes to start the season. Gio Ruggiero had run up towards the front the first couple of weeks. Unfortunately, he's in that wreck, so does not put himself in a position to finish in the top 3. Your final order in this one is Bogue, Chaber at second, Sam Dell third. LaBelle comes back from the rear of the field after his spin. He didn't have any damage. He just spun in front of the field, and the rest of the cars piled in. LaBelle finishing 4th, and P.J. Evans with his best run in a bit, finishing in the 5th position in that number 12. So Bogue picks up the win. He's 2 for 3 on the season, defending Bandoro Bandit champion who's moved up. And as our first guest this week, as the first segment here comes to a close, I want to welcome in Reese. Let's talk to him about what he's done so far in 2020, how strong he's been, and get his perspective on that wreck, because he was running second when LaBelle spun. And he was able to just barely sneak by before the rest of the carnage began. So let's take a quick break, and then we will welcome in the driver of the green and black number 4. They call him Smiling Reese Bogue. Let's hear what he's got to say about this past Friday night. All right, and talked about him before the break, and it's part of the Race Day Rewind for this week. We're going to welcome in Reese Bogue. 2 out of 3 now in the Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Outlaws for this young driver. And Reese, this past Friday, a little bit of a crazy race. I mentioned it in our last segment. Brandon LaBelle goes around after leading the first half of the race, and you kind of inherit the lead and go to the win. But take me through that moment when LaBelle spins out, and you're kind of just sitting there trying to figure out a way around him quickly.
Yeah, I was actually going to make the pass right there in that corner, and I was already directing down to the inside, and he was out there, and I'm trying to get under him because he got a little tight, and he just started to lose it, and I'm like, I was either going to go through and like T-bone him, and he could have got hurt, or just turn right and hope for the best, not to hit anybody, hit the wall, or wreck anybody else's stuff. So I turned right, and I was able to get out of it. But I looked in my mirror, and I saw a car spinning, and then that's all I saw, and then we went right to red flag. That's about all I knew at the time, and then I was told afterward what happened, and I was just glad everyone was okay, because those were pretty hard hits.
Yeah, definitely. And watching it from the flag stand, it was probably one of the harder hits I've seen in the Bandoleros. I mentioned it. You had Steve Bowden, Gio Ruggiero, Nick Rose, Isaiah Newcomb was involved. A lot of your cars in your division involved in that. And I mean, talk about winning now. 2 out of 3 this year. You won so many races last year in the Bandits. Now you move up to the Outlaws. I mean, has there been differences? Because it seems to me, week 1 you were the fastest car. Week 2 you guys struggled a little bit, and then week 3. I mean, you know, pretty much other than LaBelle, you were right there with him as well. So has it been more difficult in the Outlaws than it was last year?
Yeah, it has. I learned a lot from last year. Just because I didn't really know what the track was going to do, and since Outlaws have a little more speed, we're about half a second quicker than like the fastest times of the Bandits. So it's more not uncontrollable, but loose and on the edge than the Bandits, and most of it carries over. And there's a lot of great competition, but I would say the Outlaws are definitely a little bit harder than the Bandits. But a lot of his learning, setup, how to drive the track, and a lot of that was carried over into this year.
So you win all those races last year, the championship. Obviously, you want to win the championship again this year, but no, I just talked to you off the air. I'm throwing this question at you now, but what was the off season like? I mean, you guys had to wait over a month. I mean, that's got to be so frustrating, like it was for us too. But to not be able to drive, that must have been such a frustrating time there to have nothing.
Yeah. So actually, my first race was in the Legends. So we practiced a bit and then went to the Legend. Usually the Legends would have started back in April, but because of COVID, they got delayed. But it was just a long off time because I think my last race last year was October and November, and I think it was a good 6-7 months there. But it was a great thing that I had iRacing because without that, I would have been like really bored. And sometimes me and my friend PJ Evans, and he's raced up here, he was there last week. We'll go over to NASCAR down Waterford and go karting so we can keep in tune with driving. But it was a long time, and I was kind of getting really anxious. And after the Legend race, it was like, all right, we're getting back in the race season. Then now we're flat out in the Bando. So I'm pretty happy that we're going racing all the way through at least October, and I think the first week in November too for
Right.
Legends.
Right. So that's the last thing I want to talk to you about. I mean, you win two out of the first three Bandolero Outlaw races. You're obviously in good shape to contend for the championship. But you got surprised with a Legend car that your family purchased. You guys have run it a couple times up at the New Hampshire Road Course. What has that been like? That seems like such a different car that to me probably a little bit more out of control than the Bando.
Yeah, it definitely is a lot throttle control. In the Bando, you got about 3-4 inches of like throttle play, how far the gas can go. In the Legend, you got like 2 inches, and the weight to car and motor ratio is so little, or yeah, so little that the car is on edge the whole time, really loose. It's really fun to drive. Like I'm really looking forward to driving it, and we're off to August 29th now, and I'm already missing it like 2 weeks into the off break for that. But it's really fun. I love it. It's like the best car I've ever driven in my whole life so far. But I think we're looking to get an oval car too at the end of the year. So I'll probably show back up to Seekonk in the Legend next year, more than likely. We'll see what happens.
Well, he's going to be a busy guy as his racing career kind of takes off here, winning the championship last year in the Bandits, contending so far 2 out of 3 wins in the Outlaws, and now moving up to the Legends. Reese, we took 5 minutes from you on a Monday. I know you're busy. Thank you. Appreciate the time, and we look forward to seeing you this week at the track.
No problem. Thank you, Kyle, for having me. And good luck to everybody this weekend.
All right, that's been Reese Bogue. We come back from the break. We're going to talk about the Sport 4, the Pure Stock, the Legends, and then we'll bring in our second guest of the week, Brendon Hammann, picking up the win in the next Pit Stop Legends this week. We'll talk to him in a bit. Stick with us. All right. Thanks for Reese for joining us. Long story I'll make short about Reese. He was actually supposed to join us week one in our debut of the podcast, but he forgot to answer his Facebook messages, and I've been busting him pretty good about that. But so happy he could join us for this edition of the Race Day Rewind. So your Bandolero Bandits and Outlaws are in the books, thanks to Seekonk Grand Prix and all the drivers and competitors for that division this past Friday. Let's move on to the Sport 4s and their third race of the season. Week 1, A.J. Manuel picked up the win. Week 2, A.J. Manuel again picked up the win. And week 3, A.J. Manuel doesn't show up. So that opens the door for somebody else to visit Victory Lane. Manuel clearly the fastest car of the first 2 weeks. And electing to stay home this week. He's going to be back, I believe, this week coming. And he's also going to run on Saturday. As part of the Sport 4. Yeah, the Sport 4s are running on Saturday this week. We'll get to that at the end of the episode. But as far as this past Friday night's feature event, a good one once again. This one going green to checker, which we see from time to time in the Sport 4. And that's really, obviously, a testament to the drivers only. It's tough to go green to checker in a 25-lap race. So they were able to make that happen this past Friday night. And after finishing third week 1, second week 2, Mikey Lafort makes it one spot better and goes third, second, and first in the first 3 weeks of racing, picking up his first win of the season in the Everett's Auto Parts Sport 4 division. The Lucky 13 started back in ninth, but that didn't deter him. He was able to slowly work his way to the front. It took him a decent amount of time. I mean, he got up to the top 5 by the time the field hit for lap 5, and it was on lap 16 of 25 that he took over the lead from former champion Dave Westgate and never looked back in this caution-free event. Henry Ovalle starts in the pole. He's been strong the last couple of weeks. A former winner in this division a couple of years ago, who, he'll tell you has been struggling a little bit, but able to find a little bit more speed the last couple of weeks. Taylor Bowser to the outside in her return to racing this year, driving in the number 7 Sport 4, back at the track after many years in the Mini Cups and then a couple of years off. It was Dave Westgate. I mentioned him. He started 5th. He took the lead on lap 3. He's a former champion, knows his way around, but then Lafort comes up through the field, gets to the front, passes Westgate on lap 16, and he's followed closely by the Ed Lopes Pallets, number 77, of Jordan Lopes, who makes his return to the track after coming close to winning the championship last year. He missed the first 2 weeks of the year. Sounded like that was intentional, wasn't planning on running every week. And he gets right to the front, right behind Lafort, maybe 5-6 car lengths back. Not quite enough to get up there and challenge Lafort for the win, but a good run, albeit for Lopes, who ends up coming home second. So Lafort wins it by just about a second. Pretty good distance in a green to checker race, and he was happy, thanking all his sponsors. He's got a long list of sponsors and supporters who come to the third mile every week. So congrats to Lafort winning this week's Sport 4 feature. Jordan Lopes finishing second. Tyler Duhanchik finished third. That's 3 straight top 5s for him. And a new car, which I believe he started running towards the end of last year, if I'm not mistaken. He has been strong as heck the first 3 weeks. Some great runs out of that Phil's Propane, number 48, finishing third this week. Westgate, who led early, finishes 4th. And Tyler Almeida with a good run, rounding out the top 5. Funny story about A.J. Manuel, our first 2-week winner, and then Lafort. Remember back in week 1, there was a bump and run and a little bit of controversy. We talked to A.J. Manuel. Well, in Victory Lane, Lafort's, A.J. was there. He just didn't have his car. And Lafort thanks A.J. for not showing up in a joking fashion. He says, thanks for giving me a shot to win this week by not showing up. So it was funny. So, yeah, a good run for Lafort, picking up the win. Bottom of the top 10, you had Dave Simpson in 6th, Matthew Pion in 7th, Henry Ovalle, Taylor Bowser, and then Daniel Hayes finishes top 10. Sport 4 division at 25 lap distances this year. And green to checker, they 5 extra laps compared to last year, and they are showing why they are getting that in a green to checker affair this past Friday night. So Lafort picking up the win there. His first win of the season in the pure stocks as we move on to that 25-lap feature. A repeat winner, 2 out of the first 3 weeks. Doug Benoit, the 2018 Pure Stock champion. That number 2 is back in Everett's Auto Parts Victory Lane. Knows his way around. Brand new car this year. He said that a couple times now. And he actually was mentioning something about the frame on Friday night to the car that since it was newer, he felt like he had a little bit of an advantage over some of the other competitors, but he feels like that'll level out as the weeks go on. But right now it's working for him, starting back in the 8th position and working his way up to the front. And it wasn't an easy battle. Danny Massa led most of this race after starting 3rd in that number 41. He takes the lead early in the first couple laps, and he leads most of it. He was the dominant car in that number 41. But there's a caution at lap 10 when Justin Rio comes to a stop off turn 2, and that closes up the battle between Massa, way back former champion Scott Custodio, and Benoit, the 2018 champion. And those 3 drivers have plenty of experience. They go at it to the finish of this one with Massa leading off the start, but opening the door off turn 2 on lap 20 as they started to close in on some lap traffic. And Benoit fills that hole, man. He did what he had to do to get under there. They went side by side for a lap or so. Benoit able to take the top spot. Massa second. Then there's a quick caution on lap 22 that slows him, gets him back together. The green flag comes out, and Benoit gets to jump quickly and isn't even challenged, really, in the last 2 or 3 laps. Scott Custodio got by Massa, got to second, but not able to challenge for the win this week. So Custodio finishing second. Massa able to hang on for a strong third. I saw him on Facebook mentioning he needed a little bit more drive off the corners, a little bit loose off the turns, but he'll try to get that straightened out for next Friday night. Greg Perry, 4th, last year's champion. Haven't talked a lot about him this year. He's been a solid top 5 car, not quite fast enough to win. We'll see if that changes over the next couple of weeks. And Mike Hendricks, good run in 5th after starting up there in the outside pole. That pure stock division, very few yellows, and they do a good job. They put on a great show. There are 6 or 7 of them that really, really race hard, and they're not rough with each other. They're clean, and they put on a great show this week. So congrats to those guys for finishing up front. Benoit's 2 for 3 in 2020. Of course, on the other Friday night in the pure stock division, we had a great battle up front. It was Scott Custodio winning So Benoit's got 2, Custodio's got 1 in the first couple of weeks here of Fast Friday in 2020. Final feature of the night, we'll get to that before we welcome in our final guest, was the Nick's Pit Stop Legend Cars. And we all know back in week 1, these guys had a heck of a mess, really, is the best way to describe it, with the 25 laps taking an hour. So they didn't want to have that again. And they didn't in week 2, and they really didn't this past week, too, in week 3 on July 31st edition of Fast Friday. Good racing. There were some yellows in the middle of the race, but that's typical. These cars are tough to control. And, some people don't get that, but these things are out of control. You can ask Corey Fanning, who runs in our sportsman division, that bought one of these and has run the last couple of weeks in the Legends, and he'll tell you straight up, these things are out of control, man. They're tough to drive. So testament to these guys for getting back on track. Third place starter, Brendon Hammann, gets the lead early. I think he got the lead in lap 4 or 5. And he doesn't look back all through those restarts and everything, and picks up his first win of the year, his second career. And he mentioned it in Victory Lane. He struggled week 1 with the setup. They just weren't there. Week 2, they were better, just not quite there. And week 3, they seemed to hit it right. The story on these Legend cars is you can either run the Hoosier tires or the Federal tires. It's right now it's 50-50 on what you can run. We're going to require them to go to the Hoosiers by the beginning of September, but right now they can run either. A lot of them are trying to get used to the Hoosiers. Some of them still running the Federals. He has switched over to the Hoosiers, knowing that it's going to be mandatory, and it took him 3 weeks, but they figured it out in that Jerry's General Maintenance number 7, picking up the win this week. So Hammond picks up the win in this one. The real story outside of him was Jake Johnson, who spun early, I think on lap 6 or 7, had to go in the pits, comes back out, restarts in the rear, and by the time the field crosses at the finishes second. I mean, he passed a ton of cars in this one after winning a week prior. So great run by Johnson, again finishing second. Of course, he's run pro stocks and late models at Seekonk and won, and showing why he can get the job done now in a Legend car. So great job by him finishing second. Brandon Martinez, very similar. He went to the rear. He was actually put to the rear twice for his involvement in some accidents, and he did the same thing as Johnson did and charged through the field to finish in third. So a great run for him as well, with Reagan Parent, another great run for him in fourth, and Connor Holderbeck rounding out the top 5. Mentioned Corey Fanning finishes 7th, his best finish in the Legends in his 2 weeks. Those Legend cars back this coming Friday night for a 25-lap feature at the action track. The biggest thing about what's coming up on the next segment of the podcast is Brendon Hammann. We're going to bring him in, talk to him about this past Friday night, what it was like to get back to Victory Lane for the second time in his career. I want to talk about that tire deal and how difficult that's been to transition over tires, and then see what else he's got to say. So I'll take a quick break, get you some music here, grab a drink, do what you need to do, and then we'll get to Hammond. Then we'll come back and talk about Saturday night practice and see what that was like this past Saturday night. All right, the final segment of this week's podcast before we get to our Saturday night practice update. In a bit, the final segment as far as Fast Friday goes is the Nick's Pit Stop Legends race. And you just heard me talk about what happened, and I mentioned Brendon Hammann won, and I've got him on the phone with us here as part of this week's Race Day Rewind. Brendon, this is your second career Nick's Pit Stop Legends win, your first one coming last year, so it's been a bit since you've been to Victory Lane. I know there's only been a couple races, but what was that elation like of leading most of the laps, dominating the race, and then being able to carry the checkered flag again? I know there was a large group of supporters down at the start-finish line that were happy for you as well.
Yeah, well, not going to lie, we struggled the first 2 weeks, so getting back into Victory Lane was a big boost of confidence for all of us. You know, the first week we got wrecked a couple times, and the second week we weren't good. Not going to lie, we weren't really that good with the setup, but we figured it out. And, third week came around and went out there, and I told myself at the beginning of the race, take that lead on lap number 4 and take it early, get out front, set my pace, and make them pass me. And I held my own.
So it worked out for you. But, man, there was a lot of yellows in not a lot, definitely less than the first week. And I think I said the first week of the podcast, I think you'd agree it was a mess out there. No way around that. The second week was better. Yeah. And the third week was pretty good, too, compared to week 1. There's a few stumbles. But, I mean, overall a pretty good race. I mean, was there concern at the end looking at who was in your mirror that you were kind of wondering were they going to be able to get around you, or were you just so confident in your car that, you felt good either way?
I had a lot of confidence in the car, but there was definitely a little bit of nerves. I had Parent to my outside for a lot of the restarts, and he raced me clean. I had a couple of restarts. I had Brandon Martinez behind me, and I know he's really good and coming through the field and going wide moves. So I was a little nervous of that happening. All I had to do was protect the bottom, but my car was really good on the restarts this week, and I just made sure I hit my marks, get a good restart, took off, and set a sail.
Yeah, so you set sail back to Everett's Auto Parts Victory Lane. But there's been this big adjustment for you, and not just for you, most of the division this year, and it's going to be required as of September 4th. And I mentioned that earlier in the podcast. The switch to Hoosier tires this year. And again, going to require that starting in September. So a lot of you have got really 4 weeks to perfect it before you got no other choice but to run those. But you've been running them. Is that kind of why you think you struggled with the setup a little bit? I mean, you guys are good last year, and then that tire switch seems to have thrown everybody for a little bit of a curveball, at least a little bit.
Yeah, the new Hoosier tire is actually a really good tire, but it just takes a little bit, everything's a little bit different. The setup's a little different. You can't camber cut the tires anymore. They have to do straight up. They're slick, so they have a little groove in them, but they're not like the Federals that were fully grooved and camber cut. And, handling-wise, they're a little different because you actually have stagger in these tires now, just like a normal Saturday night, like a late model or a pro stock or anything like that. And like I said, it comes with some setup changes, and we were fast last year with the Federals, but once we figure out these Hoosiers, we'll be quicker. I have faith.
So you were pretty quick last Friday, so I got faith too, based on what we've seen so far. Hey, before we let you go, first of all, I want to thank you for taking a couple minutes. But before we let you go, I want to give you a chance to thank some of the supporters. I mean, who's out there helping you? Who was in that group of fans that were yelling at the start finish line? They obviously probably been a major part of it. Right, so.
Yeah, first of all, very well with that. They've done a lot for me. And then my dad, my brother. Jerry, he's usually there every week, helping me, adjust the car and making it faster every week and helping me fix it when it gets damaged. I got to thank Bobby, Super Dave, Colin, Napa Auto Parts of Douglas, TS Motorsports with Sean Buffington, K Rigo Racing, Quinn's Construction, F&M Trucks Centers, Simple Signs, just anybody, even Seekonk Speedway, just giving us a place to race. It's been crazy this year, and everybody's trying to stay safe, and I'm just happy we have a place to race.
Yeah, me too. I am with you on that one. And you've raced a little bit elsewhere too, at least once, right, in the Legends. So, you've been in good shape, winning week 3, and again, want to thank you for some time on tonight's race day rewind. You had Reese Bogue on earlier, so you're in good company, winners. From this past Friday, and look forward to seeing you this week, and maybe we'll talk to you again in Victory Lane soon.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All right, that's been Brendon Hammann. We come back, Saturday night cars on the track this week. Talk about the Saturday practice and dive into what's coming up next Saturday and next Friday, too. Another Fast Friday slate coming up as we somehow are already closing in on the middle of August. We'll be right back. All right, thanks to Brendon Hammann. Always great chatting with him, always a great interview, and always great to just talk to him in the pits and joke around. He's a great guy. So congrats to him picking up his second career win in the Legends. And that pretty much wraps up this past Friday, the 24th of July. Actually, was it the 24th? No, 31st, this week's edition, July 31st. So you got your 5 winners from this past Friday. And I mentioned Saturday. Yes, some Saturday night cars on the track. It was so great to see these guys back at the 3rd mile. Saturday, August the 1st, we had a practice for Saturday night competition. Saturday night racing is not far away. If you're listening to this on a Tuesday, it's only 4 or 5 days from now. So Saturday night, this coming Saturday night, we're back in action on Saturday. Unfortunately, due to the state of Massachusetts and their restrictions on fans that I've talked about countless times now, unfortunately, no spectators for this coming Saturday night. If you're associated with a team and you have some sort of association with the team, you're more than welcome to come in through the pit gate and support them, through the race teams. But unfortunately, the spectator gates are not going to be open for this one due to the rules that have been put in place by the state of Massachusetts. So looking forward to Saturday night competition this week. I'll get to that in a second. I want to talk about practice this past Saturday, quickly run through what happened there. There was a good car count. I'd say between 40 and 50 cars showed up for a practice session. That's pretty good for what we've got in place. On a Saturday night, we had a great count of weight models, a great count of sportsmen as well. And then you've also got your Helger South Coast Power Equipment sportsmen. You got your Chaz's Auto Body trucks and your Everett's Auto Parts late models, and then the Pro Stock division as well. We talked last week about the Pro Stocks, saying they weren't going to be racing for August because of the purse structure. But there were some Pro Stocks there. And I was a little bit surprised to see how many of them showed up. But you had Dave Darling, Rick Martin, Colby Fournier, Kenny Spencer, Darrell Stamfel, Tom Scully Jr. Great count of Pro Stocks there for a practice when they're not even sure they're going to race. And they wanted to come out and shake their cars down. Darling, of course, fast. So was Fournier and Spencer, Scully. Everybody really taking their turn to the top of the leaderboard in that one. In the weight models, looking for a great field of cars this year there. Paul Lallier, a former sportsman champion, making the move up to the weight models. He was quick. In his number 70. Vinny Renegato, who won a lot of races last year, was strong as well. And then you got Tommy Adams, strong as well, the defending champion, and Ryan Lanham as well, showing speed in that Richard Sprague, number 10. So great count there in practice. Sportsmen, you had the normal competitors, Corey Fanning, Craig Pianca back this year. Crystal Sirodinsky making her return to the Seekonk Sportsman was strong. Practice. Had a brake problem at the end of the day, but she was fast. Adam Petty, Joe Kohler, those type of guys in there. And then Sparky Arsenal as well was there and strong. Former champion, multiple-time champion in the sportsman. And then in the sport trucks, you had Brittany Campbell, Jake Venata, Winnie Guy, Barry Shaw, Amy Arsenal, Daryl Church, all those guys there, and a couple more. And good runs for all of them, getting their cars shaken down. I see what's going on with the setups, get those adjusted. Venata was strong. Winnie Guy impressed me with really some good lap times. Barry Shaw in a brand new truck was good as well in the Everett's 85. And then you got Brittany Campbell was fast as well, picking up her first win last year. I'm expecting her to be a contender this year. And others there as part of the Saturday night practice session. I mean, this was good. I mean, as I mentioned, you had 40 to 50 cars or so. I didn't go around and count, but there must have been at least 40 to 45, probably more. We're expecting the same this coming Saturday night, August the 8th, as 2020 rolls on. Our first Saturday night on August 8th, a little bit crazy to think, but we're going to have the Everett's Auto Parts late models for 35 laps, the Helger South Coast Power Equipment Sportsman for 30 laps, the Chaz Auto Body Sport Trucks for 30 laps, and the Sport 4 division running a non-points exhibition show on Saturday. So they've run on Friday. They will continue to run on Friday. That will not change, but they're going to run on Saturday as well this year, once at least on August the 8th. So looking forward to their 25-lap feature and seeing who shows up there to compete for a win on a Saturday night. So Saturday coming up this week. Next week on the podcast, we'll have Saturday recaps, which is exciting. Can't wait to talk about that and get into what happened on the opening Saturday night. The opening Saturday night showdown of the 2020 season. A lot of people asking in the pit area the other day about the NASCAR sanction. Unfortunately, we've stepped away from that for this year due to the short season. Evaluating all options for next year and intending to go back to it at this time, but stepping away from the sanction for 2020 with only a shortened season. No use in really keeping a sanctioning agreement just for 6 to 8 races, if that many. So, there's your Saturday update. Looking forward to this coming Saturday and Friday. Friday, we return to action on Fast Friday, August the 7th. Normal night of Fast Friday racing with all 5 divisions. And then Saturday, we open with our 3 divisions, the late models, sportsmen, and trucks. And then you've got the spectator drags in there as well. The Troy City Tactical Spectator Drags making their return to Seekonk action on Saturday. That's always been great. And I'm sure there'll be a good car count for that as well. And then you've got the Sport 4 division going to make their Saturday competition. It might be their Saturday debut. I'd have to go back and look at the stat sheets. They might have run once or twice before. I know they've run as part of our thrill shows on occasion, but I'm not sure they've run on a Saturday night. So this is going to be cool to see the Sport 4 guys running on a Saturday. Again, nothing changes on Friday. Normal Friday schedule, and then this Saturday opportunity for the Sport 4 is just a one-off, non-points for fun. We're going to do that for all of our Friday divisions. The Bandoleros will run on August 15th. The Pure Stocks and the Legends will run in August as well on a Saturday. So looking forward to that. Well, want to thank Reese, Bogue, Brendon Hammann for joining us on this week's edition of the Race Day Rewind. Want to thank Ed for smashing it all together and producing a little bit of behind-the-scenes button work for him to get the music in here and the photos that you're seeing if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, if you want, you can watch it on YouTube as well. There's a photo slideshow and a little bit of video in there, every week on YouTube as part of the Race Day Rewind. And we look forward to talking to you next week. Thanks to Bogue, thanks to Hammond, thanks to Ed for producing behind the scenes. I'm Kyle Souza, and I should have said that earlier. Most of you know me by now, but you know who I am. And here we go. That's it for this week's edition of the Race Day Rewind. Thanks for joining us, and look forward to seeing some of you at the track, and hope we can get the fans back in the stands before long. Hopefully the state of Massachusetts allows that in the near future. For now, so long. Thanks for joining us, and look forward to talking to you next week on the Race Day Rewind.